So when I see the FBA shit, it's kind of like again, brother, if y'all just say, oh, well, if reparations get given out, it should just be given to us, but we're all black people. I'm like, all right, whatever. Bro, I don't think no Jamaicans coming over here like, give us money for slavery in the United States. No. But this FBA movement has turned into, let's separate black people. You're not black enough. You aren't the black person who we represent. And fuck with Tariq a lot, but I can't tell if Tariq is doing that just to create a lane that he completely owns and is completely subservient to his, like, you know, ideas and ideology, or he really, like, that's what he's really standing on, because it doesn't seem to help black people as a whole. Anyway, I say all that to say, by the way, I interviewed Tariq Nasheed. And again, when he's talking all that FBA tether stuff, I don't get offended. Bro, I just don't get offended, right? But I don't know how beneficial it is.
Peace, you know who this is. Anyway, DJ Akademiks, you are right and wrong about the things you said. You're right that if FBA was just a reparations movement and all they were talking about is that reparations should go to black people in America whose ancestors were enslaved on this land, and other people shouldn't be able to come here and just take that money, that would be right. But what you're wrong about is that is not what FBA is about. That's not what that's not what it's turning from, because you said that, hey, it's like y'all started there and now you're just, oh, this one ain't black, that one ain't black, and all that other stuff. That's what it was always about. FBA is a hate group. It's always been a hate group. FBA is a splinter group of ADOS. That's what it is. ADOS is a hate group. It was created by Yvette Carnell. It's a part of PIFA. I'm going to have all the receipts for that later on in the video. But right now, I want to show y'all some receipts of Tariq Nasheed engaging in demagoguery. This is what he does. Fat Joe is 110% right to call him out. And it's sad that Fat Joe had to do it and nobody else did it. Because it seems to me that people are either scared to call Tariq out because they're going to get backlash online from the FBA hate group members, or they don't actually watch Tariq, so they don't actually know what he's really about. Because it sounds like that to me. That's the case with you, DJ Akademiks. Like, you don't really know what he's about. Like, you're not really that familiar with his content. So I'm going to help you get familiar with a little compilation. Remember, this is a little compilation of all the demagoguery and all the hate he has spewed over the years against black immigrants. For no reason. Like just telling lies and promoting hate. And I said it was for no reason, but it is for a reason. It's for the bag. Because Tariq is a grifter. He's not a true believer yet. But you know, that grifter, the true believer pipeline is real. So he's getting there to the true believer status. But he's doing it for a bag. But let's get into this.
And that's what we got to talk about on tonight's show. Because understand, there's a lot of immigrants who go to college. They come over here and, they get all these set-asides and benefits that was supposed to be for us, but they wrapped them around the words minority, and these other groups go and gut it and use up all the resources, and there's nothing in there for us. So they're all for that. They're all for that. Everybody's standing on our backs. But family, understand this. One of the biggest problems that we got in black society, we got white supremacy, but we got a clean house of the collaborators. We got to really clean up and deal with these collaborators. And one way to deal with them is identifying them. We better know who's who, especially who's out here supposed to be speaking for us. We need to know who's who. And the biggest problem to black people in the last, I say, 500 years are anchor baby Negroes. These Negroes who are brought in or whose parents come from different societies and bring them in, or have babies in a town or a culture or a country, and then undermine the people of that culture. I want everybody to keep your same divisive energy when you do something negative. I'm tired of Black Americans absorbing every other group's negativity. Their negativity becomes a part of Black culture. We're cutting that off. There's a video circulating, and I posted it. I don't know what country this is in. It's some Black folks. I don't know what language they're talking, but it's outside the U.S. I don't know where it is. I think somewhere in the Caribbean. On Twitter, I said possibly Cuba, but a lot of people corrected me on that, and that's why I said possibly, goddammit. But there was I don't know, it was outside of it was somewhere. They were outside, and it was a dead corpse in a casket, and there was some woman twerking on the corpse. There was a bunch of people standing around the corpse, and some woman was in the casket twerking on the corpse. And I said, look, they ain't us. That's some other group. Let's be clear. That's some other damn group. These are non-foundational Black Americans doing this ratchet garbage. And I've had a few immigrants get mad at me because of that. We got to stop absorbing everybody's ratchetness and negativity. A lot of stuff that becomes negative in Black society, we got to understand that's been brought over from other places. Certain things that becomes Black culture. Look at what becomes Black culture. When you think of Black culture, what do you think about? When you think of Black culture now? When you think of Black culture, ratchetness. People who can't talk worth a damn. People smoking and twerking. And when you look at those three main things, let's look at twerking, by the way. Twerking was something that was all that twerking and popping your ass in the streets. Where did that come from? That didn't even come from us. That came from the Caribbean. If we're going to be real, all this damn popping your ass in the streets, sisters weren't doing that back in the day. That was looked down upon. You had to carry yourself a certain way in Black society. All that twerking started in the late 80s. That twerking, it started in Miami. That's where that shit came from. It started from Caribbeans going to Miami, and that was part of the Caribbean culture. The carnival and you putting on an outfit and you popping your ass in the streets, that's a part of their culture, which is cool. They would do that ceremoniously. That's part of their culture. Then they started bringing that to Miami, and Miami started the bass music thing. And understand, Miami and Atlanta became almost a satellite of Miami because of the bass music scene. Remember, the early hip hop music scene in Atlanta was really bass music, a lot of the bass music, the booty shaking music, and then the strip clubs and all that shit popped off, and then that became a part of Black culture. So that came from some outside shit. You understand? So we have to look at where a lot of this stuff comes from. All this popping your ass in. Now the shit looks, it's corny to me now. Everybody's popping your ass in the damn street. You dig? That's not a Black American thing. It became our thing because it was brought in by other folks. You dig? So stuff like that, for ceremonies, that's cool. But when it becomes a part of everyday culture, not cool. It's degrading now. Now it looks on it's on some other gutter type of shit now. When you that's all you do on Twitter, pop your ass. You go on Black Twitter and Black Instagram, and that's all you see. That's become a part of Black culture. And then white people, they start mimicking it when they try to act Black. Is you got your ass cracked open. And that becomes a part of black culture. You understand? See, we have to look at where a lot of stuff comes from. And then when you point this stuff out, what people start doing, they start doing what I call Wakanda-splaining. We're all black. We all black. Global black people. We black. Everybody black. We got to stick together. See, that's Wakanda-splaining. See, now, when we talk about everybody hold your own nuts, all that ratchetness and niggas smoking left and right, again, that's some shit that comes from the Caribbean too. Niggas smoking back to back, smoking weed all fucking day. That was brought in too. We weren't doing that. But when we talk about rejecting negatives and looking out for ourselves, everybody wants to start Wakanda-splaining. Man, we all gotta fight the same struggle. We all gotta battle the white man. We all in this together. But black Americans, we're the only ones fighting white supremacy. Let's be real. When it comes to fighting white supremacy, the only people that's really, really fighting white supremacy are black people in America. Some Caribbeans, they get down. They used to, big time. When I'm talking about in the 1800s, but I'm talking about in modern times, right now, who's really fighting white supremacy? I'm talking about modern times. Don't start talking about Dessalines and all these cats, because that energy ain't there like it used to be. You dig? Somebody said New Orleans had twerking, but remember, New Orleans, that was a satellite for the Caribbean too. That's a major satellite for the Caribbean because of the French. You dig? So we're calling these people out. We're codified. We're not falling for that gender divide, because they're trying to push this gender divide that doesn't exist. They're trying to push a gender divide that doesn't exist. And notice a lot of this is coming from a lot of these anchor baby non-foundational black American Sambos. A lot of this gender divide, and notice a lot of that gender divide has always come from them. A lot of that gender divide has always came from these non-foundational black Americans. Anytime we criticize some of these people who are trying to harm us, some of these non-foundational black Americans will pop up talking about, well, y'all just don't like black women. It goes real deep. We got to start looking at history and seeing who's who. See, we've never differentiated ourselves from other black people. So if somebody's black, we're like, that's us. But they on some other shit, man. They have been on some other shit. Let me tell y'all something deep too, man. A lot of folks don't know this. Down in Central America, now we know in the 60s, you had a lot of in the late 60s, you had the immigrant wave coming in from South America and Mexico. But even farther down than that, around the Honduras area, you had British Honduras. British Honduras in 1961, there was a big hurricane down there. And one of the hugest hurricanes in the history of that area, 1961, British Honduras. Wiped out a lot of people, made a lot of people homeless. A lot of those people from British Honduras came to Los Angeles. Okay, we're talking history here. A lot of them immigrated to Los Angeles because they were displaced. Now that there were people from that area in LA, they kind of had a lifeline. They had a family line from LA to that area. In 1973, that area, British Honduras, was named Belize. It was renamed Belize. Okay. In 1981, Belize, they got their independence, early 80s. So a lot of Belizean people came to LA. LA is full of Belizean people, especially South Central in particular. South Central LA is full of Belizeans. There's about 30,000, 40,000 Belizeans in South Central LA. A lot of Belizean. Do you know a lot of the gang members in LA come from Belizean backgrounds? A lot of folks don't know that. Especially the Bloods. Because when they came over, you had the Crips starting. The Crips, yeah, a lot of those Bloods are Belizeans. Yeah, a lot of Belizeans are in LA, and a lot of them are Bloods. A lot of them are Bloods. So yeah, and also it's close to Colombia, so that drug pipeline, you dig? But a lot of Bloods come from Belizean backgrounds, and some Crips too. I think some of the Harlem Crips, some of them were founded by some of those Belizean immigrants, from what I remember. It was the Harlem Crips. I know very few Crips, but a lot of Bloods have Belizean backgrounds. I know OT Genesis is Belizean. Yeah, I think he's Belizean. Also, a lot of Belizeans went to Chicago. A lot of Belizeans went to Chicago in the 60s, too. In the 60s and the 70s. A lot of them went to Chicago. And a lot of other immigrants started to come into some of these urban areas in the 60s and 70s. So now, remember, you got some of these immigrant groups, especially in Belize, they have their own cultural differences there. You got the Creoles and the Garifus. I forgot certain types of different immigrant groups within Belize, because Belize is a very small country and it's surrounded by these other Spanish countries. So it's a lot of mixtures there and a lot of beefs and differences and stresses and stripes and shit down there. So remember, a lot of folks come over, they come here with some of that same tribalism within their culture. So again, Garifuna, right, thank you. That's the word, yeah, Garifuna, yeah. So remember, a lot of folks come over and we're another tribe. We're another tribe to them. So a lot of time when niggas start beefing, there's nothing for a motherfucker to blast this dude. That's nigga, he ain't me. That nigga's from another tribe. So that's when we see all these immigrant groups come over, people who believe they're from other tribes. See, we're on some, hey, our brothers, black on black crime, but they're like, I'm Creole. I'm from a whole different tribe than that nigga. I'll blow his fucking brains out. So a lot of that comes from that. See, we got to understand the history of all this stuff, man. We got to understand the history of all this stuff and where a lot of this stuff comes from. You dig? Why it's so easy we see, well, it's black on black. Why our black brother shooting our black brother? No, this dude is from a whole different culture. Yeah, they've been using immigrants against us for a long time and we just haven't caught it. Even with the drug game, a lot of the stuff, a lot of the violence, they've been using immigrants against us. They've been using immigrants against us for a long time, and we've been on some kumbaya shit. And a lot of the animosity, we thought that it was a regional type of thing, but it really wasn't. For example, Willie D, you still in here, brother? Willie, are you in here? My man Willie D in the group Ghetto Boys. I was looking at some hip hop documentary, and my man Willie and Scarface, they were talking about how they went to New York, and they in the mid '90s. They went to New York. I think it probably was the early '90s, but they went to New York and they were getting shitted on. And a lot of rappers would talk about that, even from the West Coast. A lot of people were talking about how they would go to New York and get shitted on. A lot of rappers, they talked about how they went to New York and they would get booed and certain cats would disrespect them. A lot of Southern people would say that. I remember Outkast, they went up there and they felt disrespected. A lot of West Coast cats. And a lot of folks thought that it was just a regional thing, but it really wasn't. It wasn't about region. Black people, New York and the South, there's always been a respect thing there. Yeah, they booed Outkast. We got to understand this. In the 90s, you had a lot of, in the rap game, even now, New York was full of immigrant rappers. A lot of rappers came from immigrant backgrounds. A lot of the hip hop crowd at that time, those immigrant cats were gravitating towards that. You dig? There was always a respect. I'm talking about going back to the 80s. I'm sorry, going back to the 80s, there was a respect. But right in that mid-90s, all of a sudden things got real janky. They start booing niggas and all this. So people like, where did that come from? That came from somewhere else. I'm telling y'all the hip-hop game, hip-hop history. New York and LA and other regions, there was always a respect beforehand. But when some of these immigrant cats started to be prioritized within the hip-hop industry, that's when some of the bullshit started happening. That's where that shit came from. I'm talking real talk, Kimmy. It was some outside energy. Yes, it was. And that's the problem. See, we got to understand where some of this bullshit ass energy comes from. Yeah, we got to understand where a lot of bullshit energy starts coming from, who's bringing it in, and how did it start. You dig? Who's bringing it in and how did it start? Because look, people from outside cultures, they have no problem agitating a beef because they're not a part of either group. You know what I'm saying? Like a Tim Dog. Tim Dog is Caribbean from what I understand. So for him to do some stupid shit like fuck Compton, you make the block out for a lot of folks. And then he got G-check. Some niggas hollered at him. I think they saw him somewhere and he started copping pleas. But yeah, you don't do no shit like that just out of respect for people in your own lane. Because you put a target on their backs. Niggas out here don't play like that, especially back then. Let me tell you something out there in New York. Let me tell you. See, some of those, they send a lot of immigrant coons over here. And remember, New York and East Coast, it was really a lot of those immigrant coons who were the ones driving them cabs and not picking niggas up. Remember there was a whole thing about cab drivers not picking up black folks. Most of those cab drivers were those Negro immigrant coons from the Caribbean and fucking Africa. Let's be real. Most of those coon ass drivers of them taxis who weren't picking niggas up, it was them. Those were the ones who I got to know that passenger up that street. It was them niggas. They'd drive over your ass and go pick up some white folks. It was them niggas doing that. I went to apologize. It was them niggas. Let's be real. They've always been on that dumb shit. They've always been on that bullshit. They've always been on that. Let's keep it a buck. They've always had this contempt and this vitriol. And just spitting on somebody like that shows contempt. That shows contempt when you spit on somebody like that. You understand? But they've always been on that bullshit. This is why when Uber and Lyft and all that came through, that really fucked up their little grind. Yeah, that really fucked their little grind up. So now we don't need their asses no more. I love Lyft and that's the greatest thing ever created. Lyft and Uber, greatest thing ever created. I remember going to New York, man, I would be waiting on taxis before Uber and Lyft. I remember I would go out there to do the Hidden Colors when we started doing the first Hidden Colors. I remember it was freezing out there. I'm waiting out there 20, 30 minutes, cabs just passing me by nonstop. I'm like, God damn. Boy, that's the one thing I used to hate about New York. Now I'm good. Now I love it. I just call my Uber, my Lyft, and I'm good to damn go. You dig?
As you heard, nothing but vile hatred. Vile hatred. That's what he does. He spews that every day, and he's been doing it for years. It's a reason why people who call themselves FBA are so disrespectful, so hateful, so bigoted, because this is what they are listening to day in and day out. Day in, day out. Tariq does this every day. Every day. So if you're sitting around listening to this every day, you're going to start believing it. And you're going to think that black immigrants are the cause of all your problems. The tethers are the cause of all your problems. They're stealing from you. They're doing bad things and you're getting blamed for them. They're cosplaying you. He says this stuff every day. And it's a reason why I use Tariq is because he's the leader and the founder of FBA. Because if I use the examples of his apparatchiks and all the other people who talk like this, people will say, well, Tariq ain't talking like that. Or how we know that's not a bot? How we know that's not an agent? How we know that's not a white person? Well, you know Tariq is not a bot. You know he's not a white person. He's definitely an agent, though. This is what it is. And now I'm gonna play this clip right here. This is a clip from my previous video of the receipts giving you the complete timeline of FBA and how it's connected to white nationalist groups. So I want to take this time to actually explain how this whole ideology came to be. Because remember, FBA comes out of ADOS. It's a splinter group, but they still hold on to the ideology. So for you to really understand why FBA operates the way it operates and why they believe what they believe, we must first go back. I'm going to play a clip of Tariq Nasheed when he first started repping ADOS, then known as DOS.
Tonight. You say Yvette Carnell made up the DOS term. That's a good term. I'll take my hat off to her. The DOS term is a very good term. I actually like that. Descendants of slaves or descendants of slavery. Very good term. Now, I like that term. You know, I have my differences with Yvette Carnell, but sometimes people do good things. I like that term. American DOS, descendants of slaves, descendants of slavery. All right. I'm here. That's a very good codified term. I like that. And we need to jump on terms like that. You dig? Shout out to Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore. One thing I do commend them about, and Antonio, I've seen some of his videos. He brings good information. You know, they speak up for the African or the Black American experience.
As you heard, family, Tariq is such a grifter that he was trying to steal the term, but somebody in the audience, several people actually, in the live stream audience, made it clear that, hey, that's Yvette Carnell's term. And he had to acknowledge it. You could see it in his face that he didn't want to do it, but he had to. He tried to steal the term in true grifter fashion. So, as time would go on, he got down with ADOS. He got down with them, and then he started trying to push his own thing, which at first was Native Black American, but then he realized, hey, I can't trademark this. So he went back, and he couldn't get that to pop. So he went back to ADOS, and then he came up with the bright idea of foundational Black American, something that he could trademark and he could push. And remember, when he did that, he was still preaching that foundational Black American and ADOS is the same thing. Two terms that mean the same thing. Before he started beefing with Yvette Carnell and ADOS, and he made it a full-blown splinter group, But he still held on to the ADOS ideology. And what is the ADOS ideology, and who is Yvette Carnell? Well, Yvette Carnell is the founder and leader of ADOS. This is her, as you see on your screen right now, with the MAGA hat. She created DOS, which now is ADOS, in about 2016, 2017. Around the same time, she was a board member for PIFA. What is PIFA? Progressives for Immigration Reform. And all you have to do is go to irs.gov and you can look them up. They're a tax-exempt organization. You can get their tax records. And then when you look it up, there you see Yvette Carnell, Director. Yvette Carnell, Secretary. Yvette Carnell, Secretary again. That's right, Yvette Carnell. She was a board member, a high-ranking board member of a hate group. And some will say, well, show me that PIFA is a hate group. Because you're showing me that she's a board member, but you're not showing me that it's a hate group. Well, I'm going to do that for you right now. And we're going to start at the beginning with the man himself, John Tanton. He's now deceased, but he is the father of the modern anti-immigrant movement. Now, let's just read about him a little bit. John Tanton was the racist architect of the modern anti-immigrant movement. He created a network of organizations, the Federation for American Immigration Reform, the Center for Immigration Studies, and Numbers USA, that profoundly shaped the immigration debate in the U.S. About John Tanton. A retired Michigan ophthalmologist, Tanton had white nationalist beliefs and wrote that to maintain American culture, a European American majority is required. In his own words, I've come to the point of view that for European American society and culture to persist requires a European American majority, and a clear one at that. December 10, 1993, a letter to the late Garrett Harding, a controversial ecology professor. Now that we have learned about the racist architect of all this anti-immigrant bigotry that we see now we need to learn about the organizations he created and the networks that they spawn. Federation for American Immigration Reform. The Federation for American Immigration Reform, FAIR, is a group with one mission: to severely limit immigration into the United States. Although FAIR maintains a veneer of legitimacy that allows its principals to testify in Congress and lobby the federal government, this veneer hides much ugliness. FAIR leaders have ties to white supremacist groups and eugenicists and have made many racist statements. Its advertisement has been rejected because of its racist content. FAIR's founder, the late John Tanton, has expressed his wish that America remains a majority white population, a goal to be achieved presumably by limiting the number of non-whites who enter the country. One of the group's main goals is to upend the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, which ended a decades-long racial quota system that limited immigration mostly to Northern Europeans. FAIR's president, Dan Stein, has called the act a mistake. And now that we have some background information on FAIR, the flagship organization, now we're going to learn about PIFA's connection to FAIR. The same PIFA that Yvette Carnell was a board member of, that she only resigned from being a board member of after she got outed and exposed for being a board member of PIFA, and people started to realize, hey, PIFA is just a white nationalist front. And she left them to maintain some level of legitimacy, even though I don't understand how she could maintain any legitimacy for being a part of a white nationalist front group, especially at that high of a rank. Because there's no way you're that stupid that you didn't realize what was going on. You knew. But she left to maintain some level of legitimacy. But here, we're going to get some background information into PIFA. Many speakers at PIFA's events have links to John Tanton, the racist founder of the modern anti-immigrant movement. Representatives from Numbers USA and the Center for Immigration Studies, groups founded by Tanton, participated. The incestuous nature of the Tanton network was embodied in the person of PIFA's executive director, Leah Durant, who formerly was employed by FAIR's legal arm, the Immigration Reform Law Institute. FAIR, which the Southern Poverty Law Center lists as a hate group, was founded by Tanton, who still serves on the group's board. For a time, Durant also was a part of Choose Black America, a FAIR front group supposedly representing the interests of African Americans concerned with high levels of immigration. The group disintegrated not long after its first press conference, which was paid for and stage managed by FAIR. Now, why is this so significant? It's significant because it shows that, one, FAIR is a hate group, and PIFA is a front group for that hate group. So PIFA is also a hate group. And more alarming is that PIFA and FAIR both go out their way to create African American groups to be fronts for them. Because if you don't know, Leah Durant is black. And as you just heard me, they created a black group just for her. They have created, platform, hired, and just signal boost many black organizations. Why? Because their number one strategy is to make black people the face of the anti-immigrant movement. To say, look, it's not racist. Look, we got black people saying that we have a problem with immigration too. That's what makes this so alarming. That's their whole thing. Be anti-democrat and be anti-immigration. To make black people the front group for that. Now it's starting to click for y'all. Why ADOS, Freedmen, and FBA, all they talk about all day is anti-democrat nonsense, and they also talk about anti-immigrant nonsense all day. That's all they do. That's all they do. If you look at all their timelines, it's just about how do we attack the Democrats, how do we launder the behavior of the Republicans, and how do we attack immigrants, especially black immigrants. Because that's another way they can really, really prove that, hey, this is not racial, because not only are black people out in front of the anti-immigrant movement, they are also attacking black immigrants the most. So this is not racial. This is just, Americans being concerned about immigration levels. Now it's clicking, right? It's clicking. Where Tariq went from hitting colors to now he hates black immigrants. And he loves Trump and the Republicans. It's starting to click now. Remember, he got this ideology from Yvette Carnell. Yvette Carnell, who works for PIFA. She used to work for PIFA. Not just work for them, a board member of PIFA. A white nationalist front group that goes around creating black groups to launder their behavior. And to better show you another example of how PIFA and FAIR uses these black organizations and creates them, I'm going to touch on the Black American Leadership Alliance. And we're going to show you how PIFA uses them. What Bala did not say in that letter or during a press conference in April when it called itself the African American Leadership Council was anything about its provenance. There's a good reason for that. It turns out that Bala is simply the latest front group for FAIR, the flagship of a network of anti-immigrant organizations founded by the white nationalist John Tanton. When it first emerged in April, Bala was openly sponsored by another FAIR front called PIPA, purportedly an organization concerned about the environmental impact of immigration. As late as June, the media spokesperson and phone number listed on Bala's press releases were associated with PIFA. Bala is not the first African American front group formed by FAIR. In 2006, an organization called Choose Black America appeared on the scene. Its black members were selected, flown to press conferences in Washington, lodged there by FAIR. The group's spokesman was a white FAIR official. Though CBA fell apart soon after its debut, the Taunton Network's dream of appearing to represent a rainbow coalition did not die with it. In 2011, FAIR briefly sponsored Blacks for Equal Rights Coalition, a LA-based anti-immigrant organization that has been celebrated by the white supremacist Council of Conservative Citizens. Bala's members includes a familiar cast of Taunton allies, notable among them Leah Durant, an African-American lawyer who is also PIFA's executive director. Durant, who once worked for FAIR's legal arm, also spoke at the press conference held to announce the creation of CBA. As you've seen, family, this looks so familiar. ADOS, FBA, Freedmen, they're looking a lot like the CBA and Bala and all the other organizations. Because we didn't even talk about U.S. blacks, all that. And as you also heard, Tanton's dream was to create a quote-unquote rainbow coalition of anti-immigrantness. Where he and all his rainbow quote-unquote coalition consisted of was trying to hire black people and platform black people to be anti-immigrant and to spew racist white talking points about immigrants. And say nothing about white immigrants. Attack Democrats and be silent on Republicans. Don't this look familiar? This is what I've been telling y'all for years. This has always been the case with this group. They are a hate group. They are a hate group. So I don't think it's a good thing for you or anybody else to continue to try to launder their behavior or make excuses for it, or say, well, some of them are a little extreme, or I don't know if Tariq understands that he's actually doing things that are not advantageous to black people, or don't help advocate or push forth the cause for reparations and black unity, and is actually dividing people. He knows, because if he doesn't know, that means he's a useful idiot, which makes him even worse. And the fact that doesn't make him even worse. A useful idiot is not as bad as an operative. But like I said, he's a grifter. That's what I know for sure. If I don't know anything else, I know he's just grifting. And like I said in the beginning, there is a such thing as a from grifter to true believer pipeline. And I do believe Tariq is on it. And I do believe this is how he's going to start to really, really, really feel in the future, if he doesn't find a new grift soon. Because right now, this is about money. He'll switch up in a heartbeat if the money goes in the other direction, or things start to get violent or dangerous. He'll definitely switch up in a heartbeat. But anyway, I'm going to end this video here. Like, share, subscribe, drop me a comment, tell me what you think. Donate to me if you can. And on that note, family, peace.